Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're going through 2 Samuel chapter 24, and also 1 Chronicles 21 and 22. Then we're going to dabble in Psalm 30 for a minute. Now, tomorrow we're going to read Psalm 108, 109, and 110. So we'll be back into the Psalms again tomorrow. So let's jump right in. 2 Samuel 24, right off the bat. Now, this chapter talks about David's military census, David's punishment, and David's altar. So here we are in 2 Samuel 24:24. That, just so you know on the screen, that is one verse that stuck out to me. That really had some deep meaning to me. I will not offer anything to the Lord that costs me nothing. Because if it doesn't cost you anything, it's not really a sacrifice, is it? Nope, sure isn't. But anyway, back to 2 Samuel. Chapter 24. It talks about David's military census, David's punishment, and David's altar. We flip over to 1 Chronicles chapter 21, and it talks about David's military census, David's punishment, and David's altar. It's the exact same story, but there's a little difference. Right off the bat at the beginning here, the particular sin that brought about God's wrath is not given in 2 Samuel. But 1 Chronicles chapter 21 credits Satan with enticing David, but no contradiction exists. Both verses are correct, but God is able to use even Satan to accomplish his purposes. We learned about that in Job chapter 1 verse 12 and chapter 2 verse 6. That's pretty repetitive throughout the Bible. Here, God allowed Satan to entice David to count the people. Now, this is an act, while in most circumstances it's acceptable, but here he probably revealed that David was putting his trust in his military power rather than in the Lord's protection and guidance himself. But another possibility here is that David failed to instruct his commanders to collect the half-shekel poll tax, bringing on the plagues. That happened in Exodus chapter 30, verses 12 and 13, if you remember. We read about that too. Got to have the poll tax. He probably didn't collect it. I don't know. In either case, God did not force David to make the wrong decision here. He chose to make this decision on his own. Now, I saw some contradictions, and I want to ask you about those. The first contradiction I found here was in the numbers that Joab gave. He gave these numbers when he was counting the census in chapter 24. It says 800,000 men from Israel and 500,000 men from Judah. You flip over to 1 Chronicles, and it says that Joab found 1,100,000 men in Judah itself, and Israel, and then 470,000 men in Judah. So the number that Joab came up with, of course, it was astounding. There was over 1 million, no matter which way you put it. But this is one of those scenarios where Chronicles does not match what Samuel says, where 800,000 were from Israel and 500,000 in Samuel, but in Chronicles it's 1.1 million and 470,000. So there you have it. What do you think the difference means there? What do you think why do you think there's a difference? It may be a matter of textual transmission, or it could be that the two authors may be counting from different units from Israel. I don't know. The next thing that stood out to me was when David took his punishment and accepted the plagues. At the end there, God told the angel to, enough, withdraw your hand now. And the angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. That's in 2 Samuel. If you look over into 1 Chronicles, it says, the angel of the Lord then was standing at the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And I'm like, wait, Ornan or Araunah? Well, I got to looking into that. I'm like, are these two different people? But it turns out they're not. Ornan is actually just a variant of Araunah in that language, the Hebrew that was translated from. So it's very similar to like William in English. It could be, people may call William Will or Willie or Bill or Billy, and there's different variants of William, so to speak. So there we are with that. Now, in David's preparation for the temple in 1 Chronicles 22, Verse 5 here, this is the very first time that we learn that Solomon would succeed David and build the temple. In verses 6 through 10, in a private conversation, David gave instruction to Solomon about the building of the temple. David's personal history of warfare and bloodshed here disqualified him from being the temple builder. On the other hand, Solomon would enjoy peace and rest. His name meant man of peace, and he would be allowed to build the temple because he was a peaceful person. And then we're going to get over into Psalm 30. Now, Psalm 30 is basically a psalm that is about this story that we just read. It says in the CSB, Joy in the Morning is the title, and then the title in the King James Version is The Blessedness of Answered Prayers. This is a psalm, a dedication song for the house of David. One of the verses that stood out to me was verse 5, where it says, Weeping may stay overnight, but there is joy in the morning. I tell you what, every day I wake up and I go, thank you, Jesus, for allowing me to wake up to another day. I love it. Absolutely love it. The title here of David means authored by David. Then a dedication song of the house might have been added later to indicate how this psalm was used by the nation of Israel. And of course, in the end, his begging and pleading and help me, Lord, turns into, you turn my lament into dancing, and Lord my God, I will praise you forever. So it is a happy ending in this song. I hope to see you tomorrow for another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. If this has touched you, hit the like button and the subscribe button, and of course, click the little jingle bell so you can be notified the next time that I upload a video, which will be tomorrow. And we will see you then. Adios.